Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Power Half Hour Unstoppable Business Owner. I'm your host, Dorothy Odell, for this evening. I am also the founder of Unstoppable Overcomers Productions, where we are hope dealers around here. We bring the hope to whether that be your life or your business. We put you and your branding and your story in front of millions of people. With that, though, I would like to bring to the stage Jeanine. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Hello. So for those of people who have no idea who you are, tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your backstory.
Sure. My name is Jeannie Dougherty, and I'm a money expert and mental fitness guide for folks who want to make a career change, but they're not really sure how to do that with their money. And I also work with small business owners or entrepreneurs that they've already had the sales coaching, they've already had the business coaching, they've done all that, what I'd say, the external pieces of the money to bring in the clients and keep their income steady. However, it's still going up and down. That's when you call somebody like me a money coach, because I'm trained. I actually went to money coaching school for emotional and behavioral money coaching. So that's a little bit about me now. In terms of my backstory, I had no idea what a money coach was. If you would have asked me like 10 years ago, I would have said, oh, isn't that like an investment coach or something, or like a budget coach? But I actually went to money coaching school. And the only reason I even found out about it is I walked into my dance class, because I'm also a dancer. And there on the wall was a flyer about dance and money. It was for 4 days, 2.5 hours away. And I thought, I should go. And so I met my very first money coach, and I worked with the money coach. It was like a year of professional development. And it was like, whoa, is this why money is not working and not flowing in my life? Are these the patterns that I keep, showing up and doing instead of changing them and making them something different? It was absolutely fascinating.
I love that. Dancing and money. Like, you couldn't get two better things to coexist, in my opinion.
Yeah. And you know what? People were angry that, they're like, this is a dance class and we want to focus on our bodies and our spirituality. We don't want to have to hear about money, because they're all like, I don't like money. I don't want to talk about it. But the truth is, money affects just about every single decision we make in a day.
100%. Because if you don't have it, then you're not going to be able to have the time freedom and be able to do the things that you want to do.
Right. And if you're in a relationship dealing with a spouse or partner that is not on the same boat as you are, then you're going to be dealing with that as well. So you've got to find a way to have that back and forth. You've got to find a way to build, or not build a relationship, because at least, all I can say is that my experience, at least in the Western world, that money's number one or number two reason that people divorce. They cannot get on the same page.
100%. My parents were married for 47 years, and the only thing they thought about was money and us kids.
Yeah. Two biggest reasons people get divorced. And when they fight bitterly.
Oh, 100%. And, it's funny. They could be sweet as pie. But then the moment, historically, other people that, are getting through a divorce, they bring the smallest things out. Well, I paid for this when your mom was sick or your dad was dying, and, I paid for this. I'm like, yeah, you were together. Like,
yeah. And people are married longer and they have different spouses and kids. So it's even more complex because, it's married till death do us part. It may not actually happen in your lifetime. So it's just a very different experience.
I have this theory. There's ways to get rid of my It'll be death do you part. I shouldn't say that on my TV, right?
That's okay.
Anyways, I'm just a jokester. I'm nothing. My husband will not die by my hands.
That's good. That's good. The police are glad that you said that.
I should edit this part out. Anyways, but it's real. It's real topics, right? Because you're right. Life is all about money, whether it's coming in, coming out, not enough, too much. Well, you can never have too much. Let's be real. Right. And so I love that you said that. So share a little bit about becoming a money expert. I love that. I know you kind of alluded to it, but
yeah. So what happened is, on my way to going to money coaching school, I I loved it, but I felt, that there were some things missing. And I'm also trained as a mental health and substance abuse counselor. So I have years of experience in how to talk to people about really serious stuff in their life, or hearing about, life altering experiences. And what I found is that I wanted a little bit more. I needed more. So that's how I ended up combining the mental fitness along with the money, and created its own hybrid program, first of its kind, because you don't need to learn all about your strengths, or, I mean, it's not terrible to learn that stuff, but my experience is what's going to change you is rewiring your money brain. That's what's going to change you, because then you are taking an active, conscious step, not like, I hope by next week it'll be better, I'm just going to pray on it. And I've met people who claim to be very faithful and they kind of don't pray at all. And you're like, well, okay. That's interesting. When it comes to money, they don't think maybe they should or could. And I leave that up to them. I can't tell them. I'm not a minister. I don't know. But I just know that when people take conscious and active decisions, then they're more likely to make the change, because they're like, okay, this was bigger than me and I have to get bigger than that. That's kind of how it starts out. You have to get bigger than your problem, because if the problem's always bigger than you, you will never fix it. So one of the big things that I learned in my own life was, making my own financial mistakes and forgiving myself, and then also forgiving others when they make mistakes, because people are they're going to make the same money mistakes over and over, pretty much most of the time, until they have to make a different choice. And they're like, oh, okay. And that's the thing that I really paid attention to. That's what I noticed with couples, but also with individuals, that they are like, I need to figure out my money triggers and my fears. And I got to understand really the difference between a financial want versus a need, and not make it a power play. And that's like the big stuff that I noticed as a counselor. But the number one complaint I got as a counselor was, I hate this job. If I knew how to leave it, I would do that. Because you ask them, money was no object, what would you be doing? Everyone's on a break, basically living on an island, not talking to anybody. I'm like, that's burnout. It's burnout.
I'm laughing because that's the conversation we've been having at work for the last 2 months. Put me on an island. I don't even want to be with my family.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to anybody. I want to look at the ocean, drink, fruity drinks, eat, and sleep as much as I want to. And that's it. And that's called, you need a break, because that's not really what people want to do with their money. Yes, they want to have time to do that, time to nurture that important silence that we don't seem to get enough of. But that's not really what people want to do, because people who want to make things happen are entrepreneurs, are business owners, are people who are like, man, this job is terrible, I'm going to move on. For me, my own professional ride is that I was working at a job, and it was the last job I ever had. And I cannot believe how much workplace harassment I endured. And I was like, I got to get out of here. So I eventually became the coach that I wanted to be, because I kept asking people who own a bit, well, how does this work? And how's that happen? And how do you make the money? And nobody really knew. That's the hilarious side scoop. Nobody had any idea. Most people were either working part-time in their business. They had a spouse that was making more than enough money, so they only had to do this for like 5 years. You're like, what? And then some of them were really making money because they had great sales and marketing skills. They had good business skills, and they just stuck with it. So they just continued to do better. So I was like, oh, I want to learn not just from people who understand money in terms of like, well, you put $2 together, they can make 4 if you invest them. That's good information, but that doesn't necessarily fix the problems that are happening now, which is, hey, if you're not going to be working for a year to 2 because you're going to go back to school, how are you going to do that and not increase more debt? And I'm not even talking about tuition. I'm just saying, like, how are you going to do it without getting yourself into more debt? A lot of people have no idea how to do that. Other people are like, well, I can't do that. I'm married. I've got kids, I've got health issues, they cannot just walk away. And my concern is with the inevitable, the AI that is showing up, more and more companies will fire their human workers. Not all of them, but they will fire more and more human workers. I don't know at what age. And I don't know how long they're going to be working there. And I don't know which department, but they're going to fire people because it's cheaper. So it's going to be really up to us to figure out, how do I make money with AI and outside of AI, because AI is not everything, but it's on the rise. In 20 years, it'll be amazing, I'm sure. But right now, it's like, what? You look at it and you're like, I don't know about this. But the people who are creating the AI and the AI is also working at creating itself will take everything in a different direction. So it's really important that we take responsibility, because the people who whine about their job may just be out of a job, but the people who take action steps to get themselves to a job they love or create a business that they love, that's really different.
100%. And it's funny, because if we have had this conversation with our parents, they would look at us like we have three heads, right? Because that never ever was a conversation at our dinner table, especially with, I'm hearing now, money is an exchange of energy, right? And like, what does that mean to people? If my dad was alive and I had that conversation with him today, he would be like, okay, you've completely lost your mind. But in reality, like, we have to take a look, like you said, everybody's turning to AI right now. And that's, the screenwriters could be out of a job, us people that put content out there, how many of us are using that AI to generate some of our content. And not to mention the fact, I had this bizarre conversation with somebody last week. They wrote a complete book using AI. So
I can see that.
20 minutes to write a complete book. They sell it on Amazon, and away it goes. And it took them no time at all. And
and I think those things are gonna max out, because eventually, as much as AI is moving forward, AI detection is right there. And even if AI detection isn't correct, the minute AI gets on it, there's going to be like well, this is maybe AI, meaning you did it, it's fast, you're done. But is it valuable? Is it content worthy because we're going to get more sophisticated and be like, I don't know. And we will get more sophisticated about our money. Maybe, just from the fact of like, what do we want to spend it on? How do we want to do that? I think it's going to be very interesting to see where people put their money in the future. Like, again, 5 years from now, what's going to be hot, versus like, we never even thought of that. It's kind of like when crypto started, it was like 2009 and people were like, what is that? And now people are like, I know what crypto is, right? And we also know you can get swindled on crypto, but not everybody wants to be on a crypto platform. So again, it'll be very interesting to see what we get.
100%. I've had that conversation with my husband, and he has no idea. He doesn't want anything to do with it. And I'm just like, well, I've researched it. I know enough about it, but that doesn't mean that I know enough to completely invest and say, oh yeah, I'm putting everything I own on that.
Bad idea. So what I always recommend, if you want to try a new platform, because with anything, it's understanding the algorithm in which you are, or the blockchain that you're working with. And so if you have enough information to know what it is, that's great. But crypto is sort of an unknown. We don't have enough data to know how much it's going to move or not move. And so there's a lot of people who own crypto who are just hanging on to it because they're thinking like 10 years is going to be great. And it might be, if that's part of like, those sort of ancillary, options that you have with investing, because your savings and maybe your stock market's perfectly fine, that the stock portfolio is great. Then I would say, invest what you think you can invest, meaning you're like, okay, I've got a little bit of money set aside for this. And then do you have the ability? So if you lose it all in crypto, are you going to be okay? And that's the big problem with investing, is that it's not so much what do you have, it's do you have the ability to take the risk? Meaning, are you doing everything else that's financially sound? Like you have money in savings, because the people who are making money in crypto are already doing that. They have money in savings. They maybe have a home, maybe more than one. They have their own stock or bond portfolio, and maybe they're also investing in some real estate. So they have it in multiple areas. And that's why they do well, because it's not like, I put $2 million in it and I didn't get anything back. Yeah, that could happen. Really, that could totally happen. But I always remind people, like, if you want to understand more about like a cryptocurrency, try Forex. And people are like, what's the Forex market? And that is literally the comparison of different of currency. So like the US dollar versus the Canadian dollar, or the British pound, or the Japanese yen. Even if you're like, that doesn't even sound interesting, I don't even like it, it's pretty boring. And it doesn't sound that interesting, but it has a lot of data. And so you have something to look at. Crypto, honestly, last 10 years, that's not a lot versus looking at how long a financial currency of a country's been. And more countries are going to invent their own crypto. So the whole thing of crypto was to be like it's going to be power to the individual, anti-country. And I'm like, every single country is now looking into crypto.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember 3 years ago, they would have signs up on our banking when you go into the bank. If anybody talks to you about crypto, don't even talk to them about it. It's like a scam type thing. And now you hear more of it. Exactly. It can be. I know of a company that, they invested heavily into it, and people lost a lot of money with that, promise the world, oh yes, just bear with us, we're growing at such a rapid rate, and the guy ended up in jail. That started the company. I forget the name of it, but anyways,
is it Sam Bankman-Friedman? Sam Bankman-Friedman, I think that's the guy. He was FX or something, or FTX.
Sounds familiar. Yes. Yeah.
9 billion. He took $9 billion of people's money.
Ouch. So so here's a question. How do you know what to really invest in? What is not a scam?
So this is how I like to encourage people who work with me. I call it your winning money power, which is something we're all born with, but we forget to use. So money is very emotional. So if we make money an emotional decision, chances are we're going to probably fail with it. So what I try to encourage people to do is we want to look at the data, whatever the data is. So if your data is you're actually not putting that much money in savings, maybe you want to look at that or increase how you're making your money first. So if you raise your rates, or, you find some side hustle jobs, or I don't know, maybe you get a windfall of tax money that shows up and you're like, oh my God, I'm going to put that in savings. Smart, because you weren't expecting it. So it's doing things like that. As maybe starting at the very beginning, looking at your data, not being mad at your data, not being mad at it. The next thing is, what are your goals? What do you really want to do? Again, do you just want to take time off and look at a beach? Or do you want to really just invest in some timeshares? Oh, okay, that's doable. You have the opportunity to do that, because you may get down there, after 2 weeks, you're like, I am bored silly. The locals don't like me. Now what? Oh, you got 3 more months. Good luck. It's hard, and people think that they're going to be fine. Everything's just going to work out. Not if you don't have that kind of personality that you're flexible. Probably not. It's going to be a little harder. And then the next piece I go, okay, so what your data is, what your goals are. Now, do you have the ability to take that risk? So if the risk is investing in crypto, or the risk is I want to pull some money out because I want to put this towards, towards maybe your education fund for your kids, or maybe you're going to work a side hustle job and put that money away for, college fund. Or maybe you're not going to do any of those things. You're just going to, really work on building your business stronger by focusing on, I'm going to talk to 3 to 5 strangers a day and work on it that way. And 3 to 5 strangers could easily be on social media. So you don't have to work that hard to be like, I have to find people I don't know. Okay, I know you, Dorothy Ann. Who else do I not know? Can you introduce to people that I don't know? Okay, you know what I mean? It's super easy. Right. And so maybe you get focused on those things. That is using your winning money power, because when you're understanding your data, what your goals are, and your ability to take a risk. When it comes to an opportunity, any opportunity, you can then be like, well, let me do some research. So again, if you are like loving crypto, you could do that. If you're like, Jeannie said Forex, I'm going to go try that. Even by the way, Forex is very high risk, but let's just assume you want to go for it. Or no, you're like, everybody's jumping on this stock on the stock market. You don't have to jump on it. As a matter of fact, sometimes a popular stock is silly. Don't. Find out what, a great way to figure out if you want to invest is to take a look at your bank statement or your credit card statement. Find out where you spend your money. That might be a better company for you to invest in. So it could be Apple. You might go and get fractional stocks if you really want to do that. And there's all kinds of apps to do that for investing. Or maybe you're going to be like, no, I'm going to save my money right now. And then I'm going to put it in something after talking to a financial planner, because I realize I need more help.
Mhm.
I can't see the forest for the trees on my own. I need more help. And that right there is good. It's when people just go, I'll just tell the planner to come up with a plan. They're going to say yes. And then 3 months into it, they want to do something totally different and pull all the money out. And then the advisor has to say, well, Dorothy Ann, if you do that, that's going to change when you can retire. And they're like, no, I'll be fine. And they're like, no, you're not. But it's your money. You can do what you want. And that's where people are having more and more problems, is that they want to do big things, but they don't have the ability to take the risk for the big things. And that is an issue.
Right. So why does people need an exit strategy?
So I have found when people are in a job, even if it's long term, even if it's a government job, which are usually pretty safe around the world, but even not always. I mean, depending on the country, that could be a risk. But when people are like, hey, I really want to, retire, say, I don't know, 60, maybe a little after 60 to 65, maybe a little bit after that, then it's good to have an exit strategy plan so that you can hopefully hit that mark, but also to know if you're going to have to change. So if you have a health issue, if your spouse has a health issue, if something happens with your kids, you're going to have to change that retirement. Completely different. And I'll give you an example. There was a wonderful lady. She was in her 50s, and she and her husband, they finally launched the kids. Everything's going great. They're like, we're going to actually make it to the beach, and they were like, they already had a timeshare. They were doing fantastic. And then something totally unexpected and terrifying happened. Their adult children were killed in a car accident, and they only had their granddaughter left. So at 55, she became a new mom. And they had to adopt the child. They had to do everything, plan everything, like all the way to college, you name it, therapy, So here she was at 60 walking around. I'm going to a 7-year-old's birthday party this weekend. I'm so excited, and she's like, I'm full of energy. Of course it is. But it came from a place of unbelievable tragedy that she was like, we are not retiring. We're going to have to stay working for the money because they have to now, but also for their health and well-being. They have purpose, they have drive, they like what they're doing, and they're going to keep going because they're good at their jobs and they at least get paid to do it. So that's one way to be like, oh yeah, we might have been on the road, everything was financially great, but then we had a tragedy, knowing that there was no way we were going to stay, retired at 60 and raise a teenager. Like, well, there was just no way financially they could do that. So full time. So that's one thing. The other piece is, with our stress, if you need to be like, this job is really taking a lot out of me. I mean, I enjoy it. I love the complexity. I like the people I'm working with, but I don't think I want to stay here for another 5 years. Then that's when you start thinking of an exit strategy. And this is where people sometimes get a little simplistic. I'll just find an easy job that doesn't require much thinking. AI might be taking that job. So you're going to have to plan an exit strategy that's going to make sense to you, or it's going to be a little bit easier for you, or are you going to do something where a lot of retirees do this? About 67% of retirees actually buy a business that's already there. If it's already kind of set up, already got a client base, already got everything, emails, all that good stuff set up. And they'll buy a business as a way to supplement their income as they retire. So they're not like, oh, am I just waiting on my pension every week or every month? That may not work. I might have to do something different.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because I sat down at the age of 25 with a financial planner. I was the only one of my age that had everything. I had everything set up. And then wasn't exactly tragedy, but life struck. And then I not lost everything, but everything shifted, let's just say. And so I went from being at the top of my game to the bottom of my game and never fully recovered from that.
Wow.
And so that's why I find myself, wait a minute here, like finding those different strategies that I can put together. So when I go to retire at 65, although I love what I do on this end of things, so I don't think this will ever go away. I think till the day I die, I'll probably be doing this. But that doesn't mean thanks. Yeah, I love this, but I can't say that I would want to do that as a bookkeeper. So
yeah, exactly.
Switching that, right, and saying, okay, great, yes, let's help people in mental health. Let's help people, our veterans and our military and our first responders, and doing the shows and meeting incredible people. But if you like what you do, it's not work. in my opinion.
Hopefully, yeah. Or you've hired people to help you so that you're not struggling. For me, one of the big shifts that came out of nowhere is that both my parents ended up with Alzheimer's, and there was no family history, nothing. And that shifted my perspective heavily to I'd better do what I enjoy and what I like out of my life, because I watched two very stressed parents work really hard to provide for us, to sacrifice for us, and then have an earlier death that was complete misery for them. And it was terrifying to watch for me. And I just thought, no, there's got to be a better life out there. And that was one of the things that really stuck out to me when I would like talk to people like, didn't you like have a career change? Didn't you do something different? And people were like, nah, I'm just waiting to retirement. And I'm like, you're 39. What's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, you have a plan better than retirement? No, because a lot of people weren't raised that way. They were like, nope, I have a job. I will hate my boss, but I will have a job, and I'm like, oh.
I think that's the mentality of our parents. My dad was, you work for somebody else until you're 65, collect your pension, and away you go. And nowadays, that's not how people are nowadays. Complete opposite.
Yeah, people want happiness, they want balance, they want respect, and they're willing to take the risk of living in a gig economy or owning a business to do that, or they're willing to take on a contract and then figure out their own benefits to do that. And that's what I mean by that sort of empowerment. That's planning an exit strategy. Is it ideal? No, it'd be nice if you had a 401k and you got all these amazing employee benefits. But if they're going to lay off in 2 years anyway, wouldn't you want to get started?
Yeah, exactly. And, nowadays you just never know. I know somebody who's really close to me that worked for a company for 24 years, gave everything to this company. Things inside shifted. The company culture shifted majorly. Owners bought it out. Then word on the street was, well, they're just going to close it, which turned the culture from worse to toxicity, and ended up giving 24 years of their life to a company to go restart somewhere else. And this person's got 13 years to retirement. Yeah. And so, working for the goal this person was willing to retire there, but then when everything went to shit, pardon my French, it was just like, no, mental health is more to me than that. So
yeah, exactly. And we have more power and control over our finances and our financial futures than we sometimes like to give ourselves credit for. That's why most of us will survive a oopsie. Meaning they put the money in the wrong account, or they bought a house and they took a loss, or, they had to sell a car and they were under. You will survive all that. That's not the question in this country. You will survive it. But the important thing is, are you going to learn from that? And then are you going to, make healthier and smarter financial agreements with yourself, but also with, your creditors or anyone else? Because that's where people are like, oh, I thought I was clear. It's like, no, apparently not.
Yeah. Well, and it's so important what you said, because I know a lot of people that have made financial decisions that were not in their favor, and they ended up beating themselves about it for decades. It's like anything else, you make a mistake and you move on with it, right? And so that's why it's important to, give yourself grace and move on. I love that you said that at the beginning.
Thank you. You're most welcome, because we don't forgive ourselves. We think like it's like a black mark or the scarlet letter. We'll never get rid of it. And it's like, no, even people who filed bankruptcy, had horrible credit after 10 years, in most countries, not in all, it's pretty much wiped out. It's when people commit crimes is when it is not wiped out. Right. And that's the majority of us do not commit financial crimes.
Exactly. Well, then if you do, well, that's a whole other show.
That's okay. Somebody actually asked me what's the difference. Okay. So in America, tax day is April 15th, typically. Sometimes it's moved around depending on the day of the week. But I actually shared this with them, like, well, people cheat on their taxes, and it's not just in this country. They do it, anywhere they can. And people are just like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah. I didn't say it was like the worst kind of cheating, like the you're going to get nailed by, your country's tax auditing system. But
They will find you.
yes, I mean, like if you kind of fudged on where you were living, those are kind of the most common ones. Like you thought you had a deduction, you said you were living here versus there, and that can kind of mess you up a little bit.
Or you're living with a common law spouse and you don't claim it as common law spouse. As a tax preparer, that is the most common. And I'm like, if you're not willing to tell the truth, go somewhere else.
Yes. So, but like those are what I call fudging it a bit. How much can I fudge and get away with? And they are civil stuff. I mean, that's a civil thing. It's not like a criminal thing. Where people get nailed in the criminal stuff is, not you, but there are other tax preparers throughout the world who will give people amazing tax refunds because it's total lies that they submitted to the IRS. Whoops. Right. Yeah. Big time problems.
Yeah. And that they might not catch you in a year or two, but they will find you.
They will find you. Yeah. So it's things like that. And then it can just be like, stealing people's identity, which is obviously fraud, writing checks that are bad, or all that kind of stuff. That's the problem. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe the half hour is up already.
I know.
We'll have to have you come back and do a part 2.
Yeah.
Where can people get a hold of you, Jeannie?
It's at JeannieDougherty.com. I have a free money type quiz if people want to take that, just to find out like where do they score, because a lot of times if it's not you, it's somebody else, who's like, causing a lot of friction in your life. So again, it's trying to figure out, do I have good, healthy boundaries and financial roles? Am I clear? Or am I still dealing with something from 3 years ago and I haven't forgiven them? And that's still a problem. I feel like that those are some of the easiest ways to get a hold of me. I certainly write lots of articles on LinkedIn, and I get opportunities like this to speak at a podcast. So it's just about anywhere. Mm-hmm.
Love it. Thank you so much for giving your expertise here. We loved having you. Thank you for everybody who's watching, especially and those of you that catch it on the replay. And of course, those of you that are on our Spotify or Roku channels, thank you so much. And get a hold. If you have any money questions, definitely get a hold of Jeannie, and she will take care of you. Take her money quiz. Would love to hear more about that. Post in the comments if you decided to do that. We'd love to share that information with everybody. Because I know it'd be extremely helpful for everybody to go do that. And so just thank you so much for your time today. And we appreciate having you here.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, guys, don't forget, be unstoppable in all that you do. And same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.